starting your journey as a filmmaker or cinematographer, there's a really good chance you're going to end up filming a wedding or an event. And if you can shoot a wedding, you can shoot a lot of things. They're a very high pace, high energy kind of day where you can't miss a shot. So you learn very quickly the lessons that you need to make good content. So today I'm going to show you my camera bag, my stand bag, and just everything that I take with me on a wedding day, why I use it, and some of the lessons that I've learned with my equipment over 6 or 7 years of shooting weddings. When I started filming weddings, I did not have much gear to work with at all. I used borrowed cameras and borrowed tripods and whatever I could get my hands on to make it happen. The first wedding I shot, I didn't even have enough memory cards and batteries to get me through the day. So during the reception, I had to be charging batteries and copying cards to hard drives and all sorts of things that aren't ideal, but they did get the ball rolling for me. After that point, I started to accumulate more gear and have more stuff available, which was really great and started to have some real impacts on what the footage I captured looked like, and things like slow motion and better tripods and all of this sort of stuff. But then I hit this problem where I had all these lenses and gear that I was taking so much stuff with me on a day, and I just couldn't keep up with the pace of the day. And I was just getting stressed out by feeling like I needed to use all this gear. So then I went through a third phase where I figured out exactly what I needed so that I could have everything I need to cover off every little thing that might happen on a wedding day, but not have any item that's redundant or not needed. So essentially what I've tried to do is get all the gear I need on the day into 2 main camera bags. And yes, there's a couple of things that don't necessarily fit into the bags, like this other little sling that I carry on the day, but essentially there's 2 camera bags. So the first one here is my Lowepro roller bag, which is my main camera bag that I use for all the cameras, all the lenses and audio gear that I need. And then the other bag is reserved for stands and anything else that's a little bit more bulky and doesn't really fit into here. So the pouch here, it stores some pens, a notebook, some business cards. I'll put some snacks and things in there on a wedding day. Snacks are very important in case you don't get fed. In here I have a shotgun microphone, Rode NT-G2, which I keep in there, which it's just like a laptop pouch in there. You could put a laptop in there if you wanted to. That's probably the other bag that I have too, is my laptop bag with some hard drives just in case I need them on the day. So opening the bag up, we've got a little bit going on, and not everything's in here because I don't actually have enough equipment to film everything in this bag and also be able to film myself, which I think is fair enough. So what we have in here is 3 cameras, 5 lenses, audio equipment, batteries, and some other little accessories. So unpacking a little bit, we've got a Rode Video Mic Pro Plus here, and my main camera, which is currently a Sony A7S II with a Sony 24-70 G Master lens on it. I really like this camera, and it's now a little bit old. There's been the A7 III and the Sony A7S III that have come out since then, and they're both really good cameras, but I still find that this one holds up today. And if I was buying new today, I'd probably get one of those newer models, but the image you get from this is still great and still does what I need it to. If you don't know the Sony A7S II, it's a mirrorless camera, full frame, and some of the main features are 4K in 24, 25 or 30 frames per second, or 1080p in 50 frames or 60 frames, which is especially useful on a wedding day. This may hurt someone's ears, but I actually shoot everything on a wedding day in 1080p at 50 frames per second. And the reason why I do this is that there's certain moments in a wedding day where you only get a really brief moment. You may have just seen somebody react to something and you've only got a fraction of a second where you've actually got a usable shot, and being able to double that in post is very useful. I understand that there's effects with your motion blur and your shutter speed, but I feel like it's worth it. And it gets down to this concept, which I find useful to keep in mind, which is good is better than perfect. I would rather a good shot that's maybe not technically perfect of a moment that happens, rather than trying to get the perfect shot and completely missing it. So this is how I use my camera on the day. have it around my side like this, so it's always next to me, and I can grab it like this, use the strap as a support. I don't need a monopod or a gimbal in order to keep it steady. I just use the points of contact to keep it stable, and then that's ready to go. And I also have my pouch on the other side with my batteries and my ND filters and my SD cards and some lens cleaning cloths and a few other things that are really useful. And that's all I really take around for most of the day. And then my other bag just has everything else that I need for the ceremony and the reception. I'll just show you what's in the pouch. So I have my ND filter case, 2 ND filters and some step rings so that they can be used on different size lenses. Also have an SD card case. This one's from Pelican and it has a number of SD cards in there, and I'll put the ones that I've used in there. Also have a few batteries and some lens cloths. And another little thing I keep in there is some business cards and some earplugs, which come in really handy when you're on the dance floor so that you don't lose your hearing. So coming back to the main camera bag, this is where the B camera sits, which for me is currently another Sony A7S II. And on there I'll have this, the 70-200 zoom lens from Sony, and a Rode Video Micro for audio. And this will be the shot that I use during a ceremony as a closer up shot of the couple, and just fixed on a tripod, or during speeches it might serve as the shot of the person who's giving a speech or of the couple reacting. And obviously I can use this lens on any of the other cameras, and so I may use it during the day in other ways. But that all goes together. Always keep the tripod plate on the bottom of the lens and the camera. And then underneath here we have another one of these little ND filter pouches, a couple of ND filters, a few more step rings, and these ones are just sized for the lenses that I keep in this bag, not the ones that I keep with my A camera. So it just gives me options for using ND filters on every lens that I have. And then here is where I keep my third camera, which is currently my top shot here. This camera here, the Sony A6400, and then that just is nice and compact. Got a 16-70 lens on there, so that can be a wider shot during the ceremony and get a little bit tighter if we need it to as well. And so I'll put that on the opposite side to the B camera, and that just tucks away right here in this pouch. Really, really compact. So that's the main cameras. We've got our A camera, our B camera, and our C camera. We then have another couple of lenses. I have this here, the Sigma 50mm 1.4 art lens, which I don't tend to use all that much, but sometimes during the photo session, I might pull it out just as a nicer looking lens with nicer out of focus areas and just that really nice prime lens look. And then I also bring this one here, which is a 10-18mm lens, which is just a wider option just in case I'm in a really tight space, don't have enough room with my other lenses. I just keep it as a backup. Moving to this corner of the bag, I keep a few tools and accessories that I might need during the day. I have this little pouch with a little Stanley knife, a multi-tool, some Allen keys, and some other little bits and pieces that I might need. I then have what is really useful, a lens blower. If you're changing your lens during the day, there's a good chance you're going to get a bit of dust on there, so it's really handy to have just in case that happens. Also have just a little bit of gaffer tape. It's just some small white gaff tape. Probably black would be better, but that's what I have in here at the moment. And I also have just a little lens cleaning kit. So moving up to this side of the bag, I have a little battery pouch with plenty of batteries for my cameras and a couple of spare batteries for my gimbal, which I don't tend to use, but I do keep it with me, and some extra AA batteries and AAA batteries. We then are moving into our audio section. So audio is kind of the thing that you may forget about on a wedding day, but I always think it's very important and try to have as many sources of audio as I possibly can. So here I have my Zoom H6 recorder, which is tucked away in here quite well. So this gives me 6 channels of audio, It has built-in XY microphones and 4 other XLR inputs for other microphones. And I use this as my main recorder on the day. So I'll use the built-in microphones just to get some backup audio, and I'll put the other sources that need an input into here. I also have a little windsock that just goes on the top, and that just helps to keep the wind noise down. And behind it I have tucked away just a case full of AA and AAA batteries. Moving right along, I have these 2 little pouches here, starting with this one. This is just a little case that I found from Muji, and I keep in it my other little audio devices. All right, so in this pouch we have the Apple headphones, which are really good just for monitoring audio quickly. Obviously they're not the best quality, but they're nice and compact. The Zoom H1 recorder is super handy if you've got audio coming from different sources. Maybe someone's playing an acoustic guitar over somewhere else not plugged into a PA system, or there's 2 PA systems, one for the band and one for the celebrant, or something like that. So this is handy just to be able to stick somewhere, and during speeches I'll just stick it on the lectern as a backup audio source in case a wireless microphone that they're using for the PA system cuts out, or there's a failure of another source. It's just great to have a nice source from really close up to where the audio is actually happening from. And then having 2 options for lapels is really, really handy. I don't love using a wireless system, so my default is definitely this one here, which records straight to its SD card. I know that it's just recording, whereas this one is really handy because it goes straight into the camera. But what I'll tend to do is give this one to the bride or groom, and then give this one to the celebrant, which I don't mind as much if I lose the audio, rather than the vows, which I find very, very important. But having both options is really handy. Making sure that you have as many sources of audio, different recorders and different placements of microphones, and not just relying on a PA system from a celebrant or a venue is really important. Sometimes you can't get an output from a PA system, sometimes it just fails, and sometimes your recorder may fail. So having options is very, very important. So having this pouch is really handy. I can just pull it out when I'm setting up for a ceremony. Setting up for a ceremony is the worst part of the day. Usually you're really rushed and there's a lot of things to do, a lot of people to meet, and you can't be too rushy because you're trying not to get in the way of people, and people are meeting each other, and you need to push through Uncle Bob to try and get to where you need to be. So having everything that I need to set up my audio in a couple of pouches is really, really handy. This bag here is what I call my bag of audio tricks. So it's the same pouch as the other one here, but inside is just every single adapter that I can conceive needing on a wedding day to connect to a PA system or a speaker or anything else in order to get audio. So while I try and have my own sources of audio that record the source of the sound directly, I do love getting a source from the PA system because it's usually the best sounding. In here I have all sorts of TS and TRS adapters and cables and XLR adapters. I can list them all out maybe in the description because there's just too many to go through. Some RCA to XLR connectors. Basically just anything that you may need to connect to any type of PA system. Yes, connecting with just an XLR cable is great when you can, but it's not always possible, and sometimes there's some really weird setups that you're trying to hook into. So moving up here, I have some XLR cables, one longer one and a couple of shorter ones, just in case I need them to hook into a PA system or for connecting a microphone to. And then back in the front here, I have my Rode NT-G2 microphone, which I'll plug in via XLR into my Zoom H6 recorder. And that way it's just another one of my audio sources. I'll point it towards the front and it's just another backup. So at this point, I've got quite a few audio sources running during a ceremony. I have my main camera onboard audio. I'll have my B camera audio. I'll have my C camera audio, which may be one of the lapel microphones. I'll also have the Tascam lapel recording. And then through the H6, I'll have the built-in XY microphone and the Rode NT-G2 as audio sources, and any of the PA inputs, And then I've also got that Zoom H1 floating around somewhere. And while it sounds like a lot, and you probably don't need all that many, I find that just having as many options as possible is great. And chances are that you may miss setting up one of those or something like that, but at least if you're trying for that many sources, you're going to end up with at least one that works. And even when I've tried to set up all of those sources, sometimes only one of them has worked. People don't do what they say they'll do, they won't speak into the microphone, there's all sorts of reasons why, but in the end, you need to make sure you have audio that works for you. We had the XLRs in here. And then in this pouch, I keep something a little bit interesting, which is just a big Ziploc bag, which is basically just my backup weather sealing in case I need to shoot during a rainy day, maybe during the ceremony, my tripod shot, put the plastic bag over the camera. This one here I've actually used, poked a hole through for the lens and taped around it. And it's just a really good backup waterproofing. And I also have some proper rain jackets for my cameras that are in my other bag, but at least I've got this as a backup. They're also handy for just chucking things in if you have a few loose cables or something like that. Almost done with this bag, so I keep a couple of lens cloths and my lens back caps, then any lens caps in here, and some extra earplugs in here. Just happens to be where I've ended up putting them, but having ear protection is very useful on a noisy dance floor. All right, so that's this bag done. Now this is the big bag. This isn't even technically a camera bag or a stand bag. It's just a suitcase of sorts. It's sort of a softer design with a handle still, and it has wheels so that it's easy to roll. It's really great when you've got a venue where you can just roll it straight in, but it is quite heavy when it's loaded with all the stuff I have in here. So when there's not a firm path, it can be a little bit hard to travel with, but you can still sort of drag it along in a lot of situations. All right, so opening it up, we have one big compartment in here, which has a lot of stuff. So in here we have a light stand, which I use for my light panel I bring with me on the day. And I have tripod number 1, tripod number 2, which is a bit more of a compact style tripod from Manfrotto, and tripod number 3, which again is one of these compact ones from Manfrotto. Don't know the model, 290 MT 294A4. It's just a small tripod that I find is sturdy enough for these smaller cameras I use. In here I also have my trusty monopod, which was definitely a staple of how I shot weddings in the early days, but since starting to use the camera strap technique, I've used it less and less. But I just keep it on me just in case there's a day where I need to film the ceremony with a longer lens, or just for some reason I decide I want it. I've got it in the bag. Similar to the monopod is my gimbal, which is just a Zhiyun crane. It's a few years old now. Still does a great job, but I just find that I don't actually want that kind of gimbal footage on the day. I find it a bit tedious having to make sure it's balanced and carry this around on the day rather than just having the camera with me. So I've got it with me in case there's a shot on the day where I really want a gimbal, but generally it just stays in my bag. I also bring a GorillaPod with me. This is just in case I want to mount a camera somewhere a little bit different or unique. I just have the option if I want it. Coming into this section of the bag, I have a little pouch here, which I keep another XLR cable. This one's a little bit brighter, but I have another option just in case I need to run a lot of XLR cable. And I also keep one of these, just a 5-in-1 diffuser. You know these. It's got the diffuser in the middle. And I just keep that with me just in case during the photo session I feel inspired or there's a certain shot I want to get that needs a diffuser or a reflector. But again, in the pace of the day, I don't often get this out. All right, we've got a couple of compartments left. So we've got this little zipper here on the front. which is where I keep a few things. So I've got all my battery chargers that I need during the day, just every cable that I might need and all the battery types that I have, just in case I ran out of batteries or lost some and I needed to charge them. I try and take as many batteries as I need for the day so that I never run out, but making sure that I have the chargers is very important. I also just have an assortment of power leads and extension boards in there. And then I also have my proper camera rain protection in here, 2 of those, and an emergency poncho in case I need rain protection, and a couple more of these really big oversized Ziploc bags just in case I need more rain protection. Obviously it's a few different options, but when it rains you really don't want your gear getting wet. Also have a small roll of gaffer tape, which is pretty self-explanatory. Having gaffer tape is really helpful. And this little Manfrotto phone mount. That way, if I wanted to mount my phone with the Gorilla Pod, or a camera failed and I just needed some kind of backup, or if someone just wanted to live stream the wedding onto their Facebook Live or Instagram Live and wanted somewhere to mount their phone, I've just got a little option. So putting this all back in here, I also keep a long extension lead, a 25 metre I think extension lead in my car, just in the boot as another option. So we've now got one compartment left, which is this one down here. So in here we've got 2 main things. I have my drone, DJI Mavic Pro, just the original one. A bit like my other cameras, it's now a couple of years old, but it serves me really well and I'm still happy with the image I get with it. So that's just tucked away in the bag and all the other accessories are in there. The controller, ND filters, 3 batteries, everything that I need when I use my drone, which, as with a lot of the fancier pieces of equipment I have, I don't tend to use all that often because it's a big distraction on the day. And here in Australia, there's not actually that many places you can fly a drone legally. So I only use it when I definitely can legally, and I only use it when it's safe to use so too. So in this pouch I have my drone, and then I also have a light panel. So this is a little LED light panel from Aperture. The HR672C, which is not a very catchy name, but this little panel here just runs on 2 batteries on the back. This is the bi-colour model, so it's got a colour temperature switch on the back. And I use this sparingly if I need to. The main situation where it comes up is during a reception, especially if it's outside at night and there isn't really good lighting. I'll just sneak this into a corner on the little light stand and just put a little bit of extra light in just so that I can see it on camera. But I only do it if I can do it in a way where it's not interfering with the day, because one of my main goals during the day is to be as hidden as possible and not change anything about the day and just capture it how it happens and work with what I've got. So that's my light panel. And then the last little thing hiding away the back here is just a high-vis vest, just in case I'm filming near a road or something on the day. Just like to have a little bit of high-vis just in case, so that I'm seen. So I'm still quite surprised by how much stuff I fit in this bag. Just pulling it all out, it feels like a lot of stuff, and it really is. But everything in here I find very useful having, even if a few things are mainly just there for peace of mind, like the light panel, just in case I need it on the day. But that all just compacts down into this bag. And then, as we said at the start, we've got this main stand bag and our main camera bag. So that's a bit of a look at all the gear that I use on a wedding day and how I pack it into my camera bags. I think I've got a pretty good thing going where it fits into basically these 2 camera bags. It's quite compact, quite easy to work with on the day, and the gear that I use allows me to capture every moment as it happens on the day, be prepared for lots of different situations that happen, but not be too bogged down with gear. While as a filmmaker, I really like spending as much time as possible making a shot look the best I possibly can, setting up lights and getting the audio perfect. It's not possible in these sorts of run and gun filming situations like a wedding or documentary or anything like that. So I think the kit that I've decided on here is definitely an example of good versus perfect. If I was always trying to make sure that my ND filter was on when I was outside, then unscrew it when I'm inside on a wedding day, even something as simple as that could cause me to miss a really important shot. So that's why I'm willing to do things like have a shutter speed that's higher than 180 degrees and shoot in 50 frames per second rather than 25 on my main camera. During the ceremony, I use the 3 cameras and I have the 2 on tripods set to 4K, and that just gives me some room to punch in for a 1080p timeline in post-production, just a way that you can get more out of the cameras you already have there. It's not perfect, but it allows you to get a much better range of shots and have those shots a little bit wider just in case people move around, which they always do. There's been more than one time that I've had people standing in front of both my tripods at the same time, which is very frustrating, but in the end, what happens on the day happens. As long as you've prepared yourself for as many of the contingencies as possible, that's all you can do. So that's how I pack my camera bags. I hope that you find it useful. It's quite a long video, I know, but I enjoy seeing how other people set up their camera bags, and lots of different things from here come from seeing how other people work and changing things along the way. And while I don't expect anyone to do things exactly the way that I do, maybe you might pick up 1 or 2 tricks along the way. If you did find this useful, please leave a comment down below and let me know. I'd love to hear what things you found useful. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.